Welcome to Stats Daily Podcast. Without you guys, this wouldn't be possible. Thank you guys for subscribing. We're blessed enough to have an interview with ghost hunter Patti Starr, who also I've been on her ghost walks a bunch of times as a little kid and stuff, and in Bardstown. And I mean, your Bardstown ghost walks are definitely, I recommend everybody go to, and they're definitely a good time. So, how are you doing tonight?
Ah, great. And thank you so much, Seth, for having me on with you. I'm looking forward to this.
Absolutely. I mean, you got so many stories to tell. I mean, you've ghost hunted that one of the most historic towns here in Kentucky, and even where I'm gonna say supposedly, but I know there's good evidence that Jesse James's ghost is there.
Yep. Jesse James. As a matter of fact, in 1980, the Louisville Journal sent a reporter into the tavern, and they wrote a story about how Jesse James haunts the Talbot Tavern. So that's been quite a while.
Yeah, what experience have you had there with him? Have you caught him? Have you caught his voice? Have you actually seen him?
Yeah. I let's just say I've seen like a shadowy outline, and we suspected that it was him. And I captured a couple of pictures of him before I even started the ghost walk. Just when I don't know if you know this, but back in 1995, I became the general manager to the Talbot Tavern.
Wow.
And yeah. So when I started hearing all these stories about Jesse James, sometimes late at night after we closed, I would stay a little bit later, and I would have my camera. Now back then it was analog, so I could take pictures, and you could only take like 36 if I don't even know if you remember using analog film.
I wasn't even born.
I know. And then you would take that film to usually Kroger's. They had a little Photoshop there, and you would drop it off, and sometimes you could get it back within about 10 days. So it was nothing like it is today, where you can just take, now I might take 200 pictures on a ghost investigation now. Before, I could only take, a couple of rolls. And so I've gotten him in a couple of the analog photos that I've taken. And then of course, over the years, as we've gone into the digital, I've got a few digital. It's really great though, when it seems like the last two pictures that we got of him, one was in 2008 and then another in 2017. This is while we were on the ghost track. He was wearing a white cowboy hat. I just think that's very significant. It tells me that, and I've always felt this about Jesse James, that he really wasn't like of a criminal mind. He really wasn't. He was a good-hearted man. It's just that, he just got caught up in war and politics, and it just didn't work out real well. And maybe he too didn't make the best of the decisions to make according to that. But that's life.
Do you think it's more residual or intelligent haunting from Jesse James?
That is a very good question. I kind of think it's more actual and not so much a residual. I think that is because sometimes we can actually get a response. Like I might say, "Are you going to speak with us tonight?" And he says, "You bet." So I don't know. I kind of think he's coming in and out, kind of lingering. And I like that. I like the fact that he can be there and answer questions. It's kind of neat when you can learn things from these entities, spirits, ghosts, whatever you want to call them. I always tell people I've learned more about life from the dead than I have the living.
I mean, there ain't many more historical figures as Jesse James, especially from the Wild West days and the cowboy days.
It is. It's very true. I learned the other day that there's only one photo of Billy the Kid. Only one photo. And I think right now it's like traveling, the internet. I think maybe TikTok, somebody brought it up on a TikTok that it was, they showed the picture Billy the Kid and said, well, that's it. That's the only picture of Billy the Kid. There's not a whole lot of Jesse James. And I don't know if you know this, but Jesse James was he loved disguises. He would wear like wigs and fake beards and all kinds of things when he would travel, especially on a train, because the Pinkerton Detective Agency was always looking for Jesse, always. And they had just the one picture of him. So if he took a train trip, he would always make sure he was in full disguise. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely just made their own decisions. I don't think he was evil either. I mean, if you think about it, I don't think he even killed one person.
I don't think he had an evil bone in his body. I just, like I said, I think, especially what the government did to his mom, shot her arm off and then killed his younger brother, and it's half brother, but still, he just got fed up with it and goes, well, this is what I'm gonna do in retaliation. And like I said, sometimes we don't do, when we're angry and we're out for revenge, sometimes we don't make the best decisions. But I know that when he would come into Bardstown, I would hear stories about, my grandpa told me that when Jesse came through, that he would stay at their farm, and when he would get ready to leave, he would always leave him a gold coin in his room, or maybe under a plate or something, to show his appreciation. And I that right there just shows me he was a good man. He didn't take advantage of the situation when people were kind to him. He was a pretty good man.
Yeah, and he ain't there like a mirror at the tavern that he shot, and there's still a bullet hole there?
Well, it's a mural. Yes, it is. There's one particular room upstairs at the old Talbot Tavern. These murals were, at one time, they were very bright, beautiful paintings on the wall. They depicted different things. One was a picture of a volcano. One was a picture of a street in Paris. One was a picture of the windmill in Don Quixote, and one was a mural of a circus. And they said that that was his favorite room to sleep in when he would rent his rooms. And one night, after having a little bit too much to drink, he woke up in the middle of the night, and he said that the birds in the murals had come alive, and they were actually flying out into the room. So he got his gun, he just started shooting at these so-called birds, and the bullet holes, of course, were going into the wall. Now, the innkeeper was real smart. He did not cover up those bullet holes, and he would kind of use those when he would sort of promote the tavern itself, and come stay at the tavern or come eat at the tavern, and you'll be able to witness the bullet holes left by Jesse James, that type of thing.
Definitely a genius promotional tool right there.
Yep, it was very good.
They still haven't covered that up, have they?
No, as a matter of fact, they started putting plexiglass over the walls now, so that people would stop putting their fingers, in the bullet holes, because they didn't want to deteriorate, maybe chip it out. They wanted to leave it as it did when he first shot it up, So yeah, but you can go there on my ghost walk, unless we have a lot. Now, this time of month, especially with October, I can have as much as 65 people, and the room is almost too small to have all 65, especially right now with COVID. You don't want that many people all pressed in together. So sometimes we get to go in and sometimes we don't. But then I tell them they can always come back, maybe the next day or whatever, and go in. Anytime you go in there to eat or anything, they are much obliged at letting you go upstairs and see the bullet holes.
Wow. That is definitely history right there. Not just like not even paranormal. That's just history, like the whole entire Wild West days, man. That definitely don't want to cover anything like that up, because people love Wild West stories. That's a story in its own right there.
Well, yeah, they do. And also, the hardest thing I think about being a ghost hunter is when you are ghost hunting, you discover that you're in a haunted location, and then you're trying to figure out who the spirits are, and then you're trying to figure out why they're still lingering. Then you try to figure out their stories, where did they come from, when were they born, all of that. That is one of the most difficult things about ghost hunting. A lot of times we don't get the story. A lot of times we'll have a beginning and maybe an end, maybe a beginning, who they are and how they died, but we don't have a middle. And any story needs a beginning, a middle, and an ending. And a lot of times your ghost stories just don't. They're, you just say, I went in and it was haunted by an angry man, and we think he died back in the 1800s because of the way he was dressed, but you don't really have his story. But we have Jesse James's story, so it's kind of cool.
Absolutely. And I mean that's just the interesting topic right there, man. Jesse James, just his name. And we're not talking about the Jesse James that was married to, what's her name, the movie star Sandra Bullock, I believe.
Oh yeah, not that one.
We're not talking about
Sandra.
that Jesse James. We're talking about the outlaw Jesse James.
Well, one thing that I found really interesting, anytime I do any type of ghost hunting, I love to do the history. Just history is just amazing. And did you know that his mother's name, Jesse James's mother's name, was Zerelda? And I just thought that was a very unusual, striking, beautiful name, Zerelda. But then when he got married, I think he married his second cousin, and her name was Zerelda. I just thought that was really interesting.
Wow. Wasn't his mom native or had Native American in her?
I don't know. I have no idea about that. I certainly don't. That might be something we could look into. I do know that she was born in Midway, which is just a few miles down the road from Bardstown. So that's where she was raised. And I think that's why when Jesse wanted a little bit of a rest to get away, that's why he liked coming to Bardstown, because a lot of his family split out and would live on the outskirts of Bardstown as well. So with his mother being born there, now she, I think she lived in Midway for quite a while. And then I think her dad moved them out to maybe Kansas or someplace. I'm not real sure the whole history about her, but I do know that as a child, she went to school in Bardstown, like elementary school. And then she went on and got a college degree at the St. Catherine's College. And back then, not too many women fulfilled that they didn't get degrees. They didn't get the higher education, but she did. She got higher education.
Wow. That's definitely impressive and very great history lesson as well, man. I mean, that is definitely very, very interesting. And I know history buffs will definitely love that story.
Yeah. Well, the other story that I really love is that at one time, Jesse, he rode with Quantrell Raiders. You know that, right? And within the Quantrell Raiders, there was another rider that rode with them, and his name was Donnie Pence. And they rode together. Of course, they they did some raids and that kind of thing. That was after the war. And then Donnie Pence, just like Jesse and Frank, got out of the group, got out of that group of men. And then Donnie Pence was actually the cousin of Jesse James. Donnie Pence left Quantrell Raiders and came to Bardstown. He got real serious about going a better path in his life. So he became the sheriff of Bardstown. And he was the longest sheriff that held office in Bardstown as a sheriff. I think he held office for 26 years. Now I say office, really, they didn't hold office back then. Back then, they hired a sheriff. They did not elect a sheriff like they do now. They hired a sheriff, but they hired him and he stayed sheriff for 26 years. I think that's pretty cool. And that was another safe reason for Jesse to come to Bardstown. He didn't have to worry about being arrested. The local sheriff is your cousin. You're not going to get arrested.
Didn't he keep him safe too?
Do I?
He kept Jesse safe, didn't he?
Oh yeah. Well, the whole town pretty much kept kept him safe. In Louisville, the Pinkerton Detective Agency would get wind that Jesse was in town, and they would send their top detective, which was George Hunter, into town to arrest Jesse. And I think he came into town maybe 3 times altogether, but arresting him it didn't happen. And that was mainly because, the townspeople would warn Jesse when the Pinkerton guys would pull up. They would go into the tavern and warn Jesse. I do know, I read another story where Jesse James was traveling. He was on the train. He went through Louisville, stopped, and believe it or not, he was in disguise. And believe it or not, George Hunter actually boarded the train, and as he's shuffling down the aisle, came to where Jesse was sitting. That seat wasn't taken, and he sat down. And he started to talk to Jesse. And Jesse, how you talk, who are you? What are you doing? That kind of thing. And he said, yeah, he was a detective with the Pinkerton Detective Agency, and that he was looking for Jesse James. And he says, one day I'm going to get him. One day I'm going to get him. And of course, he's talking to Jesse James and didn't even know it. Isn't that a great story?
Wow. That's definitely very hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shows how
So
much
I
of a
think he had,
genius that Jesse was.
yeah, yep. I think he had a good sense of humor.
Very intelligent too, it seems.
Yep. I'm a fan. I've seen a couple of Jesse James movies, and there was one a few years back, and it made him look like just a horrible, mean, uncaring person. I couldn't even watch it. I turned it off. I was like, nope, I'm not going to watch that. They have no idea. Nope.
Oh man, that's definitely great though that that he's open enough to like talk to you and stuff on your ghost walks.
Yep, it is fun. People enjoy it. People like seeing the apparitions. We've got 2 really good apparitions of Jesse. I don't know when the last time you came, but in 2008 we got a real good picture of him. And then 2008 we got a real good picture of Jesse standing by the fireplace. And then in 2017 we got him again standing in front of the fireplace. Yeah. So, and he was, both times he had on a white cowboy hat. So we kind of felt like that was his trademark. White cowboy hats, for us is like the good guy. And, when you watch those old timey Western, and then the black cowboy hat was like the bad guy, so I kind of think that's might be why he always shows up in a white cowboy hat.
I know that you also on your ghost walks go to the cemetery behind the Jailers Inn as well.
Yeah, we do. We go back there, and
that's a very active place, ain't it?
It is. We tend to get a lot of good apparitions, and sometimes we just get shadowy forms. The one thing that I really like about the Bardstown Ghost Trek, I know in ghost hunting, a lot of times you get other type of images. You can get orbs, or you can get shadow people, or you get misty forms, or you can get things that look like a little white tornado. We call that vortexes. But as a ghost hunter, one of the most difficult things to capture is the actual apparition. But for the ghost walk of Bardstown, we have a lot of apparitions. We have the little girl that shows up, and we've gotten her at the tavern. Of course, we've gotten several pictures of Jesse. I think I showed 3. On the last ghost walk last year, a woman appeared standing in the room with all my other walkers, and it was really cool because you could tell she was an apparition because of the way she looked. Of course, she looked old and skeleton type with kind of wiry hair all out, but she did not cast a shadow as she was standing in front of the people that were standing up against the wall. So I knew right away that was a full apparition. And so we get great shadow people, and then ghostly shapes too, like white kind of humanoid shapes come through. So we're not just getting orbs or mist or vortexes. We're getting a lot of really good apparitions and faces. We get a lot of good faces too. Yeah.
Yeah, and we talked about before we started recording about the garden room at the Jailers Inn, and
Yeah.
I know that you've did voice recordings there and ghost box sessions and Ovulus and all that. And I talked about how a shower moved at the middle of the night, a shower curtain moved in there, which it happens often in that room actually. But did you ever hear a response to somebody saying their name is Virginia?
Oh, yeah.
I
Are
did
you
too.
kidding me? No, Ray.
Yeah,
Really?
in that
Yeah,
garden
we did.
room,
We got a Virginia. We sure did. But that was years ago. When did you go? Do you
2011,
remember?
2011.
Oh, it might have been about then. Oh, yes, we did. I did a video for a gentleman that produced a video called The Spirits of Bourbon Country. And so in that, we went into one of the rooms and we got Virginia. We sure did. We got the name Virginia, female named Virginia. And we were downstairs in a room. When you walk in the front door, it wasn't the first room straight across, but it was the next rooms that where we got that name, Virginia. It was in that room. That was pretty good. And I'm just now kind of remembering that.
Yeah, that name definitely. It was mentioned like on the obvious. What is that thing called? The app.
Obvious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we had an
Uh-huh.
obvious app on the phone, and it said that like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we used the Ovilus too. I think that's how we got it on the Ovilus. Yeah. We sure did, Virginia. We sure did.
That just validates
Wow.
that
Yeah.
just validates
That's
what
great.
you and I got, because I mean
Right.
that's two
Absolutely.
separate
Absolutely.
investigations where you got the
Yes.
same
Yes.
exact name.
Yeah. I think we did ours. I'm trying to think now when that video came out. And we may have done it before 2011. I think we may have done it like around 2007. Maybe it came out then. Or it could have been later. I don't know. Sometimes the dates, they've just become like just a ball of fur after a while, and kind of meshed together. Yeah.
That's a crazy story though. We got the same exact name. I gotta tell you
Yep.
something funny that happened at the Jailers Inn. Do you know ghost hunter
Okay.
Joe Clark?
Yeah. Oh yeah, Joe Clark. He was one of my students. I got to certify him. He's a pretty good guy.
Yeah, I had him on. He's a very funny guy. He's hilarious. But
Yeah. Yeah. I
him
like
was
Joe.
oh yeah, he's a great guy. Him and his buddies was in
Yeah.
a former, I don't know what room they stayed in. It's where there's like an Elvis picture.
Oh, and it's the jail cell room. It's where
Yeah,
the jail cell. They got it dressed. Yeah, they have it like black and white and a little bit of red and Elvis. Yes, yes, I know which room that is. I stayed in that room. We got some good
wow.
stuff in that room.
Yeah, he used to be
What did he get? Did he?
a former women's jail, wasn't it? A jail cell, former women's jail cell.
No, only one woman went to jail there,
Oh,
and she was real skinny and tiny, and she was going to try to escape. So there's a little tiny window in that cell door, little tiny one. And she stripped herself naked and then she rubbed herself. I don't know if she had Vaseline or something. And she tried to escape. So she started to squeeze out the door. And about halfway through, she got stuck. And so then I don't know if they had the fire department. I don't know who came out and rescued her,
wow.
but it was a very embarrassing situation.
Oh, but this is hilarious though. Joe Clark's I don't know, I forget his friend's name who was a ghost hunter as well. His friend took off his shirt and they had the ghost box on and they ran. Joe said, "Do you like it with him without his shirt off?" And a female voice said, "Yes."
How about that? Oh my gosh, that's too funny. Yeah, I like to put a lot of fun in my ghost hunts. I feel like when I'm laughing and encouraging the spirits to speak to us, and I'm always saying, "Thank you, sweet spirits." I call them sweet spirits all the time. And when I talk to them like that, I tend to get a whole lot more. Like, will you show yourself? I'm going to take a picture of this mirror. Can we get a reflection of your face? I like to take pictures. I like to take like flash pictures in mirrors and windows, any kind of reflective type of wall, or because a lot of times if you look within those reflections, sometimes they'll show their face. I'll say, please show your face, and they'll show their face. So I like to do that. But it's always good to have fun. Like on the ghost walk, I'll tell like 2 or 3 little ghost jokes. You want to hear one?
Sure.
Okay. Okay. I'll just tell you 3, but if you don't laugh, I'm gonna tell you 4. Okay. So the first one is a ghost goes into the bar and he looks at the bartender and he says, "Hey, bartender, give me a bourbon." And the bartender looks at the ghost and says, "Well, I'm sorry, but we don't serve spirits." I know it's corny. It's corny. But I have a good time telling them. I tell a couple of those. I try to get people laughing before we actually go on the ghost walk, so that their energy and their frequency and vibration will attract. And then we have more response. We have like people getting more apparitions or voices and things like that when we make it fun. We really do.
Yeah.
And that one really fits well with Bardstown being the bourbon capital of the world. So I kind of like to do that, kind of like to fit it into the bourbon.
Yeah. Have you ever caught a spirit saying they want some bourbon?
No, I don't think. Oh, I had one spirit tell me he wanted coffee. He said, coffee, coffee, as if he could remember how good coffee tasted. He said coffee twice. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, what is
Yeah.
the best evidence that you've like the best intelligent response that you've got in the jailers in to a question?
Ooh, well, I'll have to think about that one. Mm, 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 mm. I don't think that I have, but I had a girlfriend that stayed there one night, and she took a recording, and it was an awesome recording. She put her recorder back in the courtyard in the back, and they were spending the night there, so they just sat outside and they left it playing, and then they went back and got it and played it back, and they did get an awesome recording. And I'll give her full credit for this. Her group was called After Dark Paranormal, and the recording she got was a very gruff voice, male voice, and it said, "May the Lord be with us." And that made sense to me, because probably right before they did the hanging, they would bring the priest in and he would probably do a prayer, and he would probably say something like, "May the Lord be with us," before that, and have mercy on your soul, or something like that. So that was probably one of the best EVPs. I didn't get it, she got it, but I thought it was pretty cool that she got it there at the Jailer's Inn.
That's awesome. I mean, if you walk
Yep.
the streets of Bardstown, you can tell that you feel like you're in the old days, man. Honestly, you feel like
Yeah,
you're back in the 1800s.
I know it. I know it. The architect's awesome. Bardstown is the second oldest city in Kentucky. Of course, the first one being Harrodsburg, but Bardstown is the second oldest. And especially with the tavern, the tavern was the first permanent building built in Bardstown. As far as stone, it is a Flemish bond stonery. If you go and look at the original tavern had 2 rooms downstairs and 2 rooms upstairs, and then they added on the brick structure, and those were the back part was added on in the 1840s, and then the side, as you face the front, the side brick was added on in the 1880s. But the original was a little bit smaller, and supposedly the circle on that is right around 1779. That's a long time ago. And before the fire in 1998, before the fire, the tavern had been open for over 250 years. It never closed. In other words, it started out, as the like a pub and a tavern, okay. And then when it would get ready to sell, it would just change hands and sell. It never closed and then reopened. It would just change names. And so it had quite a few names. It had Newman House. I think it was called the Bauer Hotel, and then it was called the Talbot Tavern. And also TJ Beam at one time owned it, and that's Jim Beam's brother. That's kind of cool.
There's a lot of history there for sure.
Yeah, a lot.
Absolutely. I mean, you have also ghost hunted in Lexington as well. And where was the
Yep.
most haunted place in Lexington that you ghost hunted?
Oh, I used to love to go to the mansion at Griffin Gate Hotel. They had a mansion out on the side. I think it's closed now, but at one time, what they would do is they would host weddings and any type of parties, get-togethers, graduations, retirement, that type of thing. And over the years, a lot of the servers that worked there was one guy that worked there. His name was Ron. He was an awesome server, and I think he worked there for like 20 years or something. I mean, he worked there for a very long time, and he witnessed so many things. Now, he was not the only one that witnessed things, but because he worked there the longest, he had seen the most, and he used to tell me some incredible stories. So I really enjoyed. I guess I've done maybe 10 or 12 investigations there, and because they would constantly call me and ask me to come there, and a lot of times, especially Halloween, like all the TV channels, 27, 18, 56, 38, all of them would call me and say, oh, can you real quick, can we go somewhere tonight and, do a little ghosting, who you going to call, so that I could, have like a little segment on the news. And so that's the place I would call. I'd always call the mansion at Griffin Gate and ask them, can we come out tonight? And they were always real good about letting us go out. So I would love taking the news crew out there, and we usually would get some pretty good stuff. Yeah. Got my doggie with me, my Pyrenees.
What was some
She's a
of
good.
the what was some of the stories that the people that worked at the Jailers Inn and the tavern and that mansion told you?
Oh, a lot. Oh my gosh, so many stories. Oh my gosh. I think sometimes I would like, maybe I probably need to really sit down and just put together. The stories aren't that long. Most ghost stories are pretty short. Like I was in here and I did this and I saw this and it scared me and I ran out and blah blah blah. But so many things that I found so amusing. Like one year they decorated the Christmas tree. Ron was really, really good at decorating, and he decorated the Christmas tree. And now let me think how this story, what it was. Okay, so they decorated this Christmas tree, and one day they came in. It was like 3 or 4 days before Christmas, and it was like most of the Christmas decorations were gone. They were off the tree. So they thought, well, my gosh, what's happened? They didn't know who would come in and steal Christmas ornaments. Really nobody, but I guess anything's possible. But they couldn't figure out what happened to those, the Christmas decorations. And so then I think like the next year they went to go and buy all these new Christmas ornaments because the year before they had gotten stolen or whatever they thought. But this is what was crazy: when they went upstairs to unpack to bring the Christmas tree down, there was a box that they didn't recognize. So they went over to the box and opened it up, and there were all the Christmas decorations. So it was just, that is kind of weird. I mean, for that to happen that way, because definitely something happened to those ornaments and things, and then they find it a year later in a box after they had gone out and bought like new ornaments and things to go on the tree. Another thing that I really like this one night at dinner, Ron was doing his waiting on the different tables and everything, and he became kind of like a celebrity there because he really studied about how to wait on people and talk to people, and people just absolutely loved him. And but this gentleman stopped him and said, "Can I ask you a question?" And he said, "Yes, sir. What can I help you with?" He said, "Is there something special going on tonight? Are people dressed up in like period clothing walking around?" And Ron looked at him kind of funny. He was like, "No, sir. We don't have any. But no, we don't have anybody doing that." And so he was confused because he said twice there was a beautiful woman that had walked through the dining room area, and he looked up and kind of tilted his head at her, thinking she was quite beautiful, but she was dressed in period clothing. So he thought maybe there was some type of little reenactment going on. And I thought that was pretty cool. And then one time we did an investigation. And when I went to report to the manager what we found, and we got voices, we got a little girl, she came through, and the little girl, the lights were blinking. And so when we played back our recorder, we got this little girl, and she said, "Daddy was causing the lights." And she was telling on her daddy that he was making the lights go out. And when I told the manager this, he was quite taken back because he said, a couple of weeks ago, a lady down was having dinner, and she came up to me and said, "I'm a psychic and I've got a really good feeling for things. Can I walk upstairs and see what I feel?" And he goes, "Yeah, going up." So she went upstairs. He said she was up there about 10 minutes. Then she came back down, and she says to him, "You have a complete family of ghosts living upstairs." And he was like, "Oh, okay, thank you." Because basically, he thought she was crazy. And then when I do my summary of the ghost investigation for him, and I sit him down and I played the EVPs, and I said, "There's a little girl and a little boy up here. There's an old man. He's probably the grandfather. And there's the daddy." Because the little girl says Daddy was causing the lights. And he just kind of looked at me and went, "Oh my gosh." And then he told me the story about the psychic that went up and said there was a whole family of ghosts living on the second level.
Wow.
It's pretty cool.
Have you ever had a psychic go inside the jailers then, and they've told you what they see?
No, not for the jailers then. I did have people go with me to in the Marriott, when we went to the mansion at the Marriott. And they told me there was a little girl, and her name was Alice. And she was one of the little girls there that we were getting the voice of. And then when I went to look up the history, there was not a child living there by the name of Alice, but there was a child of a neighboring farm that would come over and play with the children, and her name was Alice.
Wow.
So that was pretty good. Yeah, I just found that out just by, doing some very, very progressive type of research, and I did find that out. And I thought that was pretty good. I like it when I can I like to bring in 2 or 3 psychics, because psychic ability, the information will flow on different frequencies and different levels. So sometimes this psychic might pick up the child, and this psychic over here might say, well, I didn't pick up a little girl, but I sure did pick up this grandpa, and he said this and he said that. So sometimes they don't pick up the same. Doesn't mean they're right or wrong. It's just whatever they're open to and in tune to and can connect with, So I like to take different psychics with me. Now, sometimes they do validate, and then sometimes they don't, that doesn't bother me for it not to be validated by having them to tell me the exact same story, because a lot of times that just doesn't work, not with psychics, because they each have their own frequency and vibration that they pick on.
Yeah. And speaking of very haunted places, the Opera House. That both me and you both have talked about that before. And I actually got the
Yeah.
owner, Roger, coming on Monday. Definitely thank you for that.
Oh, I hope you told him I suggested him.
Oh, absolutely. Roger's a good guy. He let me stay there for free on my birthday.
Oh yeah, he's a great guy. He's a great guy. And it was really funny because I had an obelisk, not the app obelisk, but I had the original obelisk. You may not know this, but before Ghost Hunters or before any of those ghost hunting shows, Bill Chappell and I started working together. He saw my website and contacted me and said that he had these instruments that he thought would work for ghost hunting, and it was called the obelisk. So he sent me one, and I told him I would work with it. And I had a lot of fun with the obelisk. But I like to use it in the phonetic mode, where it would make up things and not go into the library mode. The library mode, not library, I should say vocabulary mode. And after I started working with it, when he developed the proprietary algorithm for this particular instrument, this obelisk, he did not program it to say sentences. He just programmed it to ping and then a word come out. And then, of course, in the phonetic mode, it would be an energy that would form a word. And so when it started speaking in sentences and I reported back to him, he was elated because he said, well, I didn't set it up that way. So it was pretty cool. So I would get messages like, there are 4, or we are scared, or don't go there. I got that a couple of times. Don't go in there. Yeah, I got that a couple of times. Some of that, yeah, I got it at the Opera House. But the one thing that was really funny, Roger left us and he went out, and we were there about an hour, and then he was going to come back in. And as he came back in, he was walking up the steps. I had my obelisk at the time. I was just holding it out and seeing if I could get anything. I mean, it just said Roger. It was unbelievable that it said Roger when he was walking up the steps. It was kind of cool.
Wow, that's crazy. And I know there's a lot of little kid spirits there. And one of the stories I got, I was touched by a spirit on the shoulder, and we asked if did you just touch him, and we got a clear yes from like a little kid.
Oh,
and I was like 12 or 13 at the time.
Yes, and he captured the shadow man in the theater. Have you seen that?
Yeah, ain't that supposed to be somebody? That's supposed to be the not evil entity, but kind of evil entity, right?
Who?
Kind of, ain't that shadow man supposed to be kind of the evil entity? Like there's some type of energy you get there, like when some heavy energy like of a guy there and scares the little kids away.
I'm not sure. I do know that there was I'm trying to remember the history that Roger told me of that place. It seemed like somebody was shot there before it was a theater. It was I think at one time it was like a business building. But I'm not really sure. I don't want to say anything and then him go, where did she get that? I'm not real sure. But when you get him and you start talking with him, he's got some great stories and he has some great history. And I know you like history, so you'll like his history too.
Absolutely.
It's good. It's good stuff. Yeah.
when we ghost hunted there, it was just you could feel something very heavy like there,
Oh, okay.
and then it would scare. Then you wouldn't hear from like the other spirits. You just hear from this guy.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, sometimes they can dominate. You can get spirits that will come through. Sometimes for me, now when people ask me about how did you experience this and how did you feel this way, and I always tell people that when you ask me a question, I will answer it, but I'm answering it based on my experience, my beliefs, my research. All of that is from me. So it doesn't necessarily mean that my answer to your question is the only answer. And I always like to put that out there, because a lot of times you can go a certain time of night, a certain day, a certain month, and you can get phenomenal evidence, just great. And then you think, oh my God, this is so great. You can tell another group, they'll go in, they get nothing. And it's not because they're inadequate. It's just that sometimes you're at the right place at the right time. And what happens to you, maybe not necessarily will happen to the other group either, because we all have our own uh, form of attraction, when it comes to energies, frequencies, vibrations, and we resonate to what we give off. And so therefore, and it doesn't mean that some of us are evil or anything like that. If you tend to tune into something dark, no, no, no. It just means it's like somebody might call me and say, "Oh, we're having some problems. We got bit, we got scratched. This thing hits us." I don't necessarily in my experience with ghosts, I don't have that kind of experience. So I don't feel like I could help them. So I might recommend them to someone that does more with the demonic energies and things of that nature. That doesn't make these people demonic just because they can deal with it or they know how to help this family. But it's like I guess like if you were going into a different field, like a medical field, and in the medical field there's all these different divisions of the medical field. So you wouldn't go to a podiatrist if you're pregnant. You would want to go to the doctor that's associated with whatever ailment. If you've got heart problems, you go to a heart doctor. You've got kidney problems, you go to a kidney doctor. So a lot of times in ghost hunting, you also have different people that like to, their journey and their adventure is, "Ooh, I like dealing with the dark." Well, that's good. You go ahead. I don't. So I'm over here at the light. You go with the dark. But that doesn't mean because I like the light, I'm better. No, that's just where my speciality comes in, where and he loves it. He loves going in and maybe helping a family that looks like that somehow there's something dark there. I wouldn't be any help to them because I wouldn't know how to deal with it. I just deal with the light.
Yeah, me as well. When I was a ghost hunter, and hopefully there might be a comeback coming. You never know. But when I was a ghost hunter, I never had any experiences with a dark spirit. That's just what my
Yeah.
cousins would tell me about when they went to ghosting at the theater. The one time I've only been there one time. The one time I was there, never felt that spirit.
Where were you?
At the Opera House, I never felt that.
Okay.
The guy that they was talking about, my cousins, they've
Okay.
ghosted in there, and they
Uh,
said they felt a dark energy of like a man.
yeah.
I never felt that
Right.
ghost hunting there.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't either. I felt really good. I did pick up on the woman. I was going up the stairs and there was a woman at the top of the stairs. But a lot of times, again, uh, I've done so many ghost investigations that, and I would write down a lot of them. A lot of them I would just record. But in my earlier years, I wrote down everything, and I had massive, 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 massive boxes and boxes and boxes of my ghost hunting uh, investigations. And then about 4 years ago, I thought I was totally getting out of the business because my husband became ill and I had to kind of step down and sell all my businesses. I had to sell my mystical fair and my scare fest and my shop. I had to sell everything, and then and so I just, because I had to take care of my husband for 4 years, and the last 2 years were pretty rough. Um, I kind of thought, well, this is it. So I pretty much just threw away everything, because I thought this was it. And now I kind of wished I'd held on to it, because a lot of it I could have archived. And but there was so much of it. It would take me years to archive some of that stuff.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, because I mean, I was ghost hunting in 73. I was in Europe ghost hunting. I mean,
Wow.
Germany and France and Scotland and England, and I was, I was pretty active, so I
Wow.
did a lot. I was really grateful that I got to go to Edinburgh Castle. Now I didn't get to go in as a ghost hunter. I just went in on a tour guide, but I could pick up and I sensed things. And there was a couple of stories that our tour guide told us that were good with, when they were talking about ghosts and things of that nature. And so I enjoyed going and doing a lot of things in Scotland when I lived there. I lived there for about 2.5 years. It was awesome.
Have you ghost hunted at a 22-mile road in Logan, West Virginia? And are you familiar with what happened there?
No, I'm not. Tell me.
Oh man, I don't know the girl's name, but there is a girl that got killed like back in the 1930s in Logan,
Uh-huh.
West Virginia, and it's a mine road, and they laid her body out there. And when you go up there and stuff, you put your car in like neutral or something, and it goes downhill.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that.
And her
You mean
spirit like
it rolls uphill, right?
no rose down. I think it might. Yeah, I'm not too
Yeah,
familiar with
it
it.
rolls uphill, and that's
Yeah,
what's so phenomenal about it, because
yeah.
normally you would roll down a hill, but it rolls up a hill. Yeah, yeah. What was her situation? I mean, do you know the history behind her death?
She had a affair with a bunch of guys and stuff, on her husband and stuff, and I guess somebody got mad and killed her. And her spirit's supposed to be
Okay.
evil. Like when truck drivers go up there, she like gets in their car and everything.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I've heard of that.
And
That's
the
like that.
truck driver actually told one of my buddies that whenever he mentioned her name, his face went
Yeah.
white. The truck driver did, and the truck driver said that woman is a B word. She said
Uh,
that woman is evil. He said he will never. He refuses to take that route up 22 Mine Road.
oh, really? Ooh. Yeah, there's been a couple of
She got in his
places.
bed. Like when he was driving up there, she went in his bed and then sat like next to him, like up the front seat and stuff. I forget her name though.
Uh, isn't that? Oh, see, I'm trying to think of that. Resurrected Mary. Let's see. Resurrection Mary, maybe that's her name, in Chicago. I think maybe that's where it's from. Where the lady, she walks out from the, she's a lady in white, and people that pass the cemetery, she'll be walking, and they give her a ride, and then um, she disappears. And while she's in the car, she'll talk to them a little bit, and then she disappears. I don't know what happened to her.
Wow.
Yeah, Resurrection Mary. That's it. And her story actually made it on Unsolved Mysteries. That was a program years ago, back in the 80s, I think.
Oh yeah, that's a
They,
great program. I've watched it
it
on
is. I watch it on YouTube right now. I've been watching some of the old ones now. Netflix revised it, and so they have a new Unsolved Mystery, and it's pretty good. It really is.
definitely gotta check that
But
out.
yeah. But the one on YouTube, if you go to YouTube, you can watch all of them. You can watch all the episodes. And that's a pretty good episode about Resurrection Mary.
Ain't she
She,
like beautiful? I heard there was like some guy like he thought he picked up a beautiful girl.
yeah. Well, the biggest story they've got, they say it's one of the most documented apparition story ever that they've ever made public. They've documented a lot. Um, I guess it gives it a little more credibility when it's documented. And they said that like this one guy was at a dance. She appears, and he danced with her and was having a really good time. And then he said, would you like for me to give you a ride home? And she said, yes. First he asked her, where do you live? And she said something like 904 Westheimer or something like that. And he goes, well, would you like for me to take you home? And she said, yes. So they're driving home. And then she said, stop right here. And he said, but we're not there yet. And she said, stop right here. So he stopped. And when he stopped, he turned around and she was gone. She was just gone. She wasn't in his car anymore. And then he looked across, like out the window, and he had stopped in front of this huge cemetery. So the only thing, I think there was a scarf or something that she left in the car. So the next day he took the scarf and he remembered the address. So he went to the address and knocked on the door, and the lady came out, and he said, I want to return Sarah's scarf or something like that. I went to bring her home last night, but she left, and this is her scarf or something to that effect. And then the lady said, this is a cruel joke. Sarah died, or whatever. Mary died 5 years ago. And so the guy was, pretty set back about that. But that was on, I think that's on one of the Unsolved Mystery Stories. You can check it out.
That would be scary. You think you have a date, and then your date just disappears. I mean, your date was a ghost. I mean, that's that. And I mean, this guy was literally touching hands with her. Like, he was dancing with her.
Yeah, and he said she felt like she was cold. And then he remembered when the mother told him, she's been dead for 5 years. He flashed back and would remember, because when he touched her hand, he said, "Ooh, you have cold hands. I guess you have a warm heart." But he had also worked in a mortuary, and he remembered that cold feeling. And he goes, "Oh, yep, she could have been."
Has he seen her since, or?
No, I think this was probably back, I don't know, maybe back in the 50s or 60s.
Oh, wow.
When all this happened.
And people are still seeing her to this day.
Yeah, I don't think this was, I think the last, maybe the last time she was seen, maybe it could have been right around the 80s. I don't know if she's been seen since.
Wow. That's a crazy story.
Yeah.
Couldn't imagine.
I think that's what's so awesome about some of these stories is a lot of them is just truly unbelievable. It's just like, I wouldn't believe that. Even if it happened to me, I wouldn't believe it. That sometimes you get that kind of expression, but it's true. I mean, sometimes things that happen to you, and you think about it, and you think, well, how is that even possible? But sometimes it is.
Ain't there supposed to be another girl at some other town, like she hitchhikes and then disappears?
I'm not real sure. I do know that there's one that I'm very familiar with. It's the Soldier of Polly's Island, and that's in right off of Charleston, South Carolina. And they say that usually this ghost appears. It's called the Soldier of the Gray Man is actually what they refer to him as, the Gray Man of Polly's Island. And they say when you see him within 3 days, there'll be a hurricane. And if whoever sees him, that property will be spared. And so that's been pretty true. Like, people have said they see it, and then they go outside and their property is perfect. Even the tricycle is still in their yard. And then they look around them, and all their neighbors' homes are like devastated. They're like, the roofs are blown off, and their cars are up in trees, and it's just crazy. Wow. But they say that if you see they say if you see the gray man 3 days before the hurricane, that your property will be spared. It's kind of
Wow.
crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's mind boggling for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I think the last time that he was seen, and you probably wasn't born, was during Hugo. And I think Hugo hit South Carolina right about 1989. I think it
oh no,
was.
I definitely was not alive.
Yeah. And in 1989, when Hugo hit South Carolina, there was an elderly couple walking on the beach, and they saw this man walking toward them in dark clothing. And so they looked at each other and said, "Wonder who that is." And they're like, "I don't know." And then they looked back toward where he should have been passing them about that time, and he was gone. And so they looked around, and they didn't even think about the gray man of Polly's Island. And 3 days later, they had Hugo hit, and their property was perfect. Their property did not get any damage at all. It
Wow,
was perfect. Yeah.
that's
So
insane.
that was yeah. So the ghost of the gray man of Polly's Island has been seen for years and years. So that was the last time he was seen that they know of. This was documented, was 1989. Yeah.
Yeah. And at the Jailers Inn in Bardstown, have you heard somebody ever tell you a story of them talking to somebody who they thought was a real person, and then they disappeared? The person they was talking to.
No, I do know. I've talked to a couple of people, like my friend got that one EVP about, may the Lord be with us. But I've had people like this one lady tell me in one of the rooms she had her recording go all night, and when she played it back the next day, it was a woman crying. That's pretty unnerving. Let me think if I've gotten anything else from Joker's Inn. I think that's about all that I've gotten. I've gotten a few pictures. I guess that's it.
Have you got the
Yeah, we
name
do.
Virginia? Have you got the name Virginia here lately, or?
No, it was just the last time I went, and we did the investigation. As a matter of fact, it might be on that video. The video is called, uh, let's see, what is it called? The Spirits of Bourbon Country, not county, but country. The Spirits of Bourbon Country. And I'm trying to think.
Definitely feel like something happened to that Virginia. I feel like she possibly could have been murdered or something.
Yeah, or
This is what
yeah,
I feel. I feel like real
yeah,
sadness, even talking about like right now.
yeah. Um, yeah. There was it was interesting when I was looking up some of the history of the different people that served as a sheriff there. There was one sheriff that was there for many years. I don't know how many years. And they said that when he died, his wife took over. And his wife was actually stricter with the prisoner than her husband. They said that when she would get a prisoner that would act up or something, that she would make sure that he would only get like bread and water for a couple of days, and then I think too, when you go to the Jailers Inn in the back, where the extension is built in the back, they've got like a display table, and I think there's a woman's shoe, and they think that might be her shoe. Because sometimes when you do renovations of old places, for some reason, sometimes you'll find like shoes in a wall. And I don't know what the purpose, I need to look that up. Back in the old days, why did they put the shoes in the wall? I'm sure it probably had something superstitious to do with it. But I've never looked that up. But sometimes you do find shoes in the wall when you go into older places.
Wow, that's definitely that's a crazy story for sure. I mean, hearing about, well, I mean, you can just tell if you're a ghost hunter. You've ghost hunted for so many years and stuff. Like well, I haven't ghost hunted as long as you have, but I've ghost hunted for about 4 or 5 years. And if you ghost
Yeah.
hunted that long, you can just feel when something is like sad and stuff, when a spirit is sad. And with that,
Yep.
when I kept hearing that Virginia, there's some people in our group that started crying and stuff.
Oh, that is so.
And these are
Yeah.
grown
And
men.
it's so,
These are grown men.
really. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh, they
I
felt
really,
that sadness.
I really think that woman got murdered or something. Something bad happened to it. Because when we kept hearing, I don't know if you got that same feeling whenever you heard that name on the app.
I'm. It's just been so long. A lot of times I do get wrapped up, and I know what that feels like when sometimes when you start to pick up on the energy and you can feel that sadness and you cry. I mean, you literally
Yeah,
cry. So I know how that feels. Yeah.
yeah.
Um.
And actually
But
talking
the
about picking up, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, no, no.
saying her name and stuff makes you like kind of tear. Kind of made me like
Yeah,
have like a little tear come out or something.
yeah,
I
yeah.
really think
Yeah.
something bad happened to that lady.
Well, in one of the rooms, the owner, Paul McCoy, is the owner. He told me that
He's the
this
owner
is
of Jailers
probably
Inn.
that. Paul McCoy.
Do you think he would come on?
Um, I doubt it because he doesn't stay there very much. But you might be able to get one of the innkeepers to come on, especially if you can get one that's been there a while. But he does go through innkeepers kind of quick. Maybe he did have one there that was there for years and years, and then since she left, it's just been you know every year or so.
They might get scared
They'll
off
get
by
in.
the ghost.
No, I don't. I think it's just different reasons. Either they're moving on, or something better comes up, or something like that. Um, but I mean, I don't know. He might. Paul McCoy is his name, and he just might do it uh, because I know he's got a couple of pretty good stories himself, probably about the Jailer's Inn.
Yeah, that place. I mean, that place would be like awesome to own. I mean, just as a historian, not even the ghost hunting part of it. It's just the history of that place, man, would be insane owning that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
I
beautiful
do
too.
enjoy the Yeah, I do enjoy the history. And he might have more stories about there is a like a he can, the first time I went, he took me outside the Jailer's Inn, and then you open up like on the ground, how you can open up those doors like you would like storm doors, and you go down into the underneath. It was just a small area. I can't remember what they used that for, but he might have some stories about that. I don't know if that's been so many years ago. Somebody asked me about that the other day, and I thought, oh my God, I remember that. But then sometimes I'll remember something thinking it was at the Jailer's Inn when actually it was at at another plantation where they had slave quarters. So sometimes things will start to run together.
Yeah.
I get so busy doing so many
Oh,
different
speaking of
ghost.
like that, I didn't. Perryville. Have you been there?
Yeah, Perryville. I got to kind of go out and walk the area. But now there is a house there at the Perryville
Oh yeah, I've been inside
battlefield.
of it.
Yes, yes. And I hear now I have not got to do that one, but I hear that is a good place to go and do an investigation. I just got to go out on the field, and then I was able to collect, I think, one story about the battlefield, and then I put that in the second book that I wrote, the book that's uh, ghost hunting. I see it's called Ghost Hunting Kentucky is the second book, and so I have a story about Perryville in that one. That's pretty good. I did have a film crew that was filming me. We thought we were going to get a show on TV, and it fell through. But anyway, we did a 13 episodes, and we were in Springfield, and so they were filming me doing this ghost investigation at Springfield, the wine. See, what was it called? Maple Hill Manor. That's a nice place to go to. And so they were going to take a break, and I said, "Well, go down to Perryville, and you and look at that place. It's a good place to go and film." And they went and they set up their cameras and they went to film, and they heard a cannon go off, a boom, cannon go off. And they looked everywhere, and they didn't see any reenactors. They didn't see any cannons. They didn't see anything. And so when they went back to where the visitors go, like the visitor center there at Perryville, and they asked, and they said no, they didn't have any kind of reenactors going on or any things going on. But they did say it was a common thing if you got way out in the field that sometimes you could hear boom, and it's probably a residual sound, since this was so many men were killed there, so many men. It was awful.
Absolutely. I mean, we at the graveyard there, we caught a voice just randomly. We didn't even say anything. It could have been residual for sure, but we caught oh no, we got a voice on the voice recorder. We couldn't understand what it was saying. It was a male voice.
Oh, you couldn't. Oh, okay. Yeah, that happens a lot. Sometimes you do EVP and they're saying something. It's just you can't really make out what they're saying. Sometimes if you focus on it enough, you might just get something that'll come through, and then you feel like, oh, that's what they're trying to say, or that's what they're trying to tell us. But sometimes you just can't make it out. And I think that's what's so interesting too about what we call EVP, electronic voice phenomena. Sometimes you can get a really, really what we call a grade A, where you know exactly what they're saying. And then the second level is like level B would be, well, it may have said, "Can you see me?" But maybe somebody else said, no, they said, "Can you please me?" or something like that, so you can't figure it out. But it's one person hears this, one person hears another. And then the what we call the C category is like, oh, it's just garbled. It's like, blah, 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 you can't really make it out. But it's a voice. They're trying to say something, but you just can't make it out. Yeah. But that's the fun thing about, doing these. For me, collecting the evidence is what I love. And I like the pictures, the videos, I like the audios. I like it all. And I also like the digital dowsing, where the meter goes off and you can ask yes and no questions. Now, some people use the flashlights. Do you use a flashlight where you turn it and then it comes on and off? Yeah.
No,
I don't do too much. Yeah. I don't use too much the flashlights. I like using the meters, the EMF meters. I like the cell sensor meter, and I like the one they call the ghost meter too. I like that.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Oh, I've loved it. I think you're awesome. Thank you. I've just been kind of totally honored to be on here with you. Thank you so much.
And hopefully we can have you on later on this month and go into the I know you was talking about you've ghost hunted places where there was slavery and stuff, like plantations and stuff like that. That would definitely be interesting stuff to talk about as far as
Sure.
ghost hunting and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Love it. Anytime. Just give me a call and I'll try to stay awake. I'm surprised I stayed awake this long.
I definitely want to thank.
I didn't
What's
get
up?
too much sleep last night because we had thunderstorms and I have those
Oh
kind of
man.
dogs that freak out. So they were like sleeping on top of me, and I got two 65-pound dogs sleeping on top
Oh
of me.
God.
So that
That's
wasn't
all.
good. Yeah,
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 that'd be hard to sleep for sure.
yeah, it is.
Well, I definitely want to thank paranormal investigator and ghost hunter Patti Starr for being on. She's definitely a legend in the not just Kentucky ghost hunting scene, but in the whole entire world ghost hunting scene. I want to thank Patti Starr for being on. Y'all have a good night and God bless.